The collapse didn't begin quietly. It happened in front of 100 employees, their parents, 2 investors, and a live stream running on the company intranet. Eric stood on a brightly lit stage hyping the next phase of family legacy, when a payroll manager sprinted forward, whispering urgently. Before Eric could wave her off, the microphone picked up her words. "Sir, payroll failed. All accounts declined." A ripple of gasps spread through the crowd. Phones buzzed as employees checked their banking apps. One vendor, unaware of the event, called through the Bluetooth speakers. "Eric, your payment bounced again. What's going on?" Eric's smile cracked. "There must be a freeze. Someone fix this." Sheila, sitting in the second row, stood calmly. "There is no freeze," she said, her voice steady. Eric turned toward her. "Then what is happening?" Sheila stepped forward. "I removed my name from the accounts." The room exploded into whispers. But the shock in the room wasn't new to Sheila. She had felt it years earlier when her own parents told her, "Support your brother, darling. He's the family's future." They said it when she gave up graduate school to help stabilize the business. They said it again when she used her down payment savings, $230,000 United States dollars, to keep the company from collapsing. They never said it to Eric, who spent those years enjoying praise for being the genius son. To him, Sheila was the little sister who helps with paperwork. He said it proudly at dinners. He said it to investors. Once, at a restaurant packed with staff members, he laughed and told a server, "Sheila doesn't understand numbers the way I do." She smiled politely through the humiliation. Because she knew something he didn't. Numbers never lie. And she had been carrying the real numbers for years. The disrespect didn't stop at words. While Sheila quietly paid vendor debts, Eric secretly met with a cousin named Brandon, someone who'd always mocked her for being too cautious. Brandon slapped Eric on the back and said, "She's slowing you down. Replace her. Real leaders take risks." Encouraged, Eric opened a secret credit line without Sheila's consent. He spent 35,000 United States dollars on business development, which included a luxury rental home for himself and a weekend trip labeled as a leadership retreat. When Sheila discovered the charges, she confronted him gently. "Eric, these expenses weren't approved." He waved her off. "Relax, Sheila. I'm building the brand. You wouldn't get it." Brandon chimed in, smirking. "Yes, sis, stay in the office where it's safe." Sheila said nothing. She printed everything. Every statement, every loan document, every misuse. One day she knew documentation would speak louder than her voice ever could. What Eric never knew was that Sheila's sacrifices ran deeper than he imagined. The year revenue dropped by 40%. Sheila delayed a medical procedure because the business needed liquidity. The year payroll nearly failed. She used the money saved for her future home. She never told a soul. Not even her parents, who constantly said, "Eric is under so much pressure. Be patient with him." Patience turned to exhaustion when Sheila found an email Brandon had sent Eric. "Let's restructure the company. Remove Sheila from finance. She's emotional and outdated." Sheila read it twice. Emotional. Outdated. The irony was almost funny. She had kept the entire company alive. Quietly. Silently. With precision. Instead of confronting them, she began preparing her exit. Opening a new entity under her own name, removing her guarantees, scheduling meetings with the bank. Their downfall would not come from her anger. It would come from her absence. The arrogance peaked the week before the collapse. Eric, chest puffed and voice booming, announced a massive expansion plan during a family dinner. "We're opening 2 new branches. Staff bonuses will roll out next quarter," he bragged. Their mother clapped proudly. "That's my son. Sheila, take notes." Sheila sipped her water. "Eric, do you have financing secured?" He smirked. "Please. I've managed this company for years." Brandon chimed in, "Let the real leaders talk, Sheila." She simply nodded. She already knew what they didn't. Earlier that day, she had completed the final step of her exit. She removed her signature authority from every business account. Without her credit, her guarantees, her transfers, the company had less than 3 weeks of liquidity. Eric walked around celebrating his empire. Brandon toasted to future success. Their parents beamed. And Sheila quietly walked outside, breathing in the night air. Collapse was already on the calendar. The next morning, staff filed into the building buzzing with nervous energy. News of the payroll failure had spread overnight like wildfire. Some employees whispered, "This is bad. Sheila looked too calm yesterday." Others muttered, "Eric's blaming the bank, but something feels off." Eric stormed into Sheila's former office only to find it spotless. No folders, no sticky notes, not even a paperclip left behind. On the desk sat one single item, a sealed envelope with his name. His throat tightened as he opened it. Inside were copies of every liability she had personally guaranteed, and every document showing her removed signature. A short note rested on top. "Protect what you build, not what you pretend." Eric's hands trembled. Brandon entered behind him. "What's happening?" "Fix it." Eric snapped. "I can't fix what she walked away from." The words rang through the room. For the first time, Brandon looked worried. Very worried. By noon, the bank requested an emergency meeting. Eric arrived sweating, trying to project confidence. The banker, Ms. Holden, reviewed the documents with a neutral expression. "Mr. Hayes, you no longer qualify for the credit coverage previously extended. All accounts requiring Ms. Sheila Hayes's guarantee have been downgraded." Eric forced a laugh. "This must be a mistake. I'm the CEO." Ms. Holden folded her hands. "Your sister's financial profile met our requirements. Yours does not." Brandon leaned forward, frustrated. "He's the face of the company." Ms. Holden replied calmly, "Faces do not secure financial risk. Profiles do." Eric's jaw tightened. "What do you expect me to do?" Ms. Holden slid a paper across the table. "Pay overdue balances immediately or restructure operations entirely." Eric stared at the numbers. They were impossible without Sheila. Without her, the business wasn't just unstable, it was exposed. And the exposure was only beginning. That afternoon, Eric called an emergency staff meeting. Employees gathered with crossed arms, tense faces, and open skepticism. "We're experiencing temporary delays," he announced. "Banks make mistakes. Everything will be fine." A senior analyst raised her hand. "Sir, payroll hasn't been processed. Vendors haven't been paid in 2 weeks. And the bank confirmed the issue isn't on their end." Murmurs spread. Someone whispered, "He doesn't know what he's doing." Another added, "Sheila kept everything steady, he ignored her." Brandon tried to regain control. "Everyone relax. Eric has a plan." A voice from the back fired back. "Do you?" Eric felt his ears burn. He straightened his tie. "We will bounce back." But optics didn't matter. Numbers did. And everyone in the room could now see the truth Sheila had known for years. Eric's leadership was a performance. Sheila had been the stability. Without her, the curtain had finally fallen. The shockwave reached the family before Eric could spin a new story. Their parents demanded a meeting at the family home that evening. Sheila arrived quietly, taking her seat at the far end of the table. Eric rushed in frustrated. "Sheila ruined everything," he shouted. Their mother gasped. "Sheila, is this true?" Sheila opened a binder and placed it gently on the table. "This is what I paid for. These are the debts I covered. These are the months I saved the business." Their father flipped through the pages, eyes widening. "Eric, this is hundreds of thousands in support." Eric stuttered. She didn't tell me." Sheila replied softly, "You never asked." Then she slid forward the documents showing the secret credit line and unauthorized expenses. Their father glared. "You opened accounts behind her back?" Eric looked small suddenly. The silence that followed wasn't just awkward. It was exposing. Eric pushed back from the table, panic rising. "Sheila, why are you doing this? You're making me look like a failure." Sheila's voice stayed calm. "You're not a failure. You are simply facing the part of the job you always avoided." Their mother placed a hand over her mouth, tears forming. "Eric, you told us she barely contributed." Sheila looked at her mother without bitterness. "I contributed more than I should have." Eric slammed his fist lightly. "You blindsided me." Sheila shook her head. "I protected the business for years. Quietly. Consistently. But protection is not the same as approval." He whispered, "You could have warned me." She replied, "I tried." "You dismissed every warning as criticism." Eric collapsed into a chair. "What do we do now?" Sheila stood. "You rebuild. You face the board. You confront the consequences. Without me. Her exit was silent. His collapse was inevitable. The next morning felt heavier than any day before. Eric arrived at the office early, hoping to fix things before anyone noticed. But the staff was already gathered in clusters, whispering. Someone had leaked the payroll failure screenshot to a company group chat. Another shared the news that Sheila had formally resigned. If she's gone, we're done, one employee whispered. Eric stepped forward. Everyone go back to work. No one moved. Then the senior accountant approached him with trembling hands. Sir, the auditors have requested updated documentation. They want proof of liquidity. Eric forced a smile. We have revenue. The accountant swallowed. Revenue isn't cash. Sheila always said that. The words stung. Sheila's voice echoed through the people she once trained, nurtured, and supported. Eric walked into his office, shut the door, and pressed his palms to his face. The company wasn't slipping out of his control. It had already slipped. Meanwhile, Sheila sat in her new office. Small, quiet, sunlit. Reviewing proposals from 3 businesses who'd contacted her overnight. Word traveled fast in their town. People always assumed Eric was the genius behind the company's growth. But now employees were openly stating, Sheila kept that place alive. Her phone buzzed with a message from a former junior analyst. You taught me everything. Thank you for believing in me when he didn't. Sheila smiled softly. That girl had once cried in the break room because Eric humiliated her in a meeting. Sheila defended her privately, supported her career path, and encouraged her to keep going. Now that same analyst had become a senior staff member. The thought warmed Sheila's chest. She wasn't just walking away. She was walking upward, toward something built on respect, not dependency. For the first time in years, her breathing felt steady. Her future felt like her own. Back at the collapsing company, another blow landed. Their largest vendor emailed a legal notice. All shipments suspended indefinitely until outstanding balances were cleared. Eric's heart dropped. If shipments stopped, production stopped. If production stopped, revenue dried up completely. Brandon barged into his office waving the notice. Fix this, Eric. Fix it now. Eric snapped. How? With what money? Sheila took her guarantees with her. Brandon slammed the desk. Then get her back. Eric's voice cracked. She's not coming back. The truth settled on them like cold air. Sheila had been the unseen backbone and they had pushed her out. Brandon paced wildly. We're going to go bankrupt. Eric's breath grew tight. We already are. He opened Sheila's last email, just one sentence. Absence creates clarity. At the time he thought it was cryptic. Now he understood it perfectly. Without her, everything was broken. Meanwhile, Sheila met with a potential new client named Mr. Hale, owner of a local logistics company. He shook her hand firmly. Miss Hayes, I've heard about your work for years. Quiet but exceptional. Sheila smiled. Thank you. How can I help? He slid a binder across the table. I need restructuring, but I need trust first. Your reputation speaks louder than any resume. Sheila skimmed the documents, immediately spotting inefficiencies. You need clean vendor cycles, rebalanced contracts, and a new expense structure. Mr. Hale's eyes widened. You saw all that instantly. Sheila nodded. It's what I do. He leaned back. Eric never appreciated what he had. She froze slightly. You knew. He shrugged. Everyone knew. People just pretended not to. Sheila closed the binder calmly. Well, I know what I have now. He smiled. So do I, someone who can actually fix things. For once, someone valued her without conditions. The family gathered again that evening, tension thick as fog. Their mother clutched a tissue. Their father paced the living room. Eric, the board is demanding answers, he said firmly. They want a financial breakdown by tomorrow. Eric shook his head. I don't have the numbers. Sheila handled everything. Their father slammed his hand against the dining table. Then you should have listened to her. Eric lowered his head, ashamed. Sheila watched quietly from the corner. Dad, she said softly, screaming won't fix this. He turned to her, eyes softening. You gave everything to this family. We didn't see it. Sheila offered a small, sad smile. You saw what you wanted to see. Eric whispered, can you help me, just this one time? Sheila breathed deeply. No, Eric. Not again. Saving you would only repeat the cycle. Her mother cried. Eric stared at his sister, seeing her clearly for the first time. Eric left the house and drove straight to Sheila's apartment, desperation tightening around his ribs. He knocked softly. When Sheila opened the door, he looked exhausted, eyes red, shoulders slumped. "Phil, please," he whispered. She stepped aside reluctantly, allowing him in. "What do you need?" He sat on the couch, head in his hands. "I can't do this without you." She folded her arms. "You did it without me for years, remember?" He shook his head. "No. I took credit for years. That's not the same." Sheila stayed silent. He continued, "I never realized how much you carried. But I see it now. Everything is falling apart because I didn't listen." She sat across from him. "Why are you really here?" Eric's voice trembled. "Because I don't know how to fix the damage I caused. And because I'm scared." For the first time, Sheila felt not anger, but grief. Sheila took a slow breath. "Eric, this isn't punishment. It's consequence." Eric nodded weakly. "I know. I deserve it. But the employees don't. The vendors don't. Our parents don't." Sheila's eyes softened. "No, they don't." He looked up, hope flickering. "Then help me present the numbers tomorrow. Not fix things, just explain them." Sheila hesitated. The old version of her, the one who sacrificed everything, would have said yes immediately. But the new Sheila had boundaries. "I won't return to the company," she said. "But I'll help you prepare one document. But after that, you stand alone." Eric exhaled in relief. "Thank you. That's more than I deserve." Sheila nodded. "It's the last support I'll ever give." Eric accepted it silently. He knew better than to ask for more. He knew this was the final bridge, and after tomorrow she would walk away from it forever. The next morning, Sheila met Eric at a quiet cafe to review the financials. She organized the files with precision, highlighting years of her contributions and months of his mismanagement. "This is what the board will ask," she said, sliding him a summary page. "Be honest. Do not exaggerate. Do not blame me." Eric nodded. "I won't." She continued, "Explain the misuse of funds. Show your plan to rebuild trust." Eric swallowed. "What if they fire me?" Sheila looked him in the eye. "Then rebuild yourself. Not the title." Eric stared at the documents, overwhelmed. "Sheila, why are you helping me at all?" She closed her folder. "Because you're my brother. And because destroying you isn't justice. Growth is." Eric blinked back tears. For years he had mistaken Sheila's silence for weakness. Now he understood it had been restraint he no longer deserved. Eric walked into the boardroom with shaking hands. Members sat stiffly, documents spread before them. Brandon sat in the corner, trying to appear confident but clearly nervous. Eric cleared his throat. "I'm here to answer your questions honestly." A board member spoke first. "Why did we lose liquidity when Sheila stepped down?" Eric inhaled slowly. "Because she was the source of it. Not me." Murmurs spread. Another member asked, "Did you open unauthorized credit lines?" Eric nodded. "Yes. I made poor decisions. I ignored warnings. I disrespected the person who kept this place alive." Even Brandon looked away. "What's your plan moving forward?" another asked. Eric straightened his back. "To rebuild the company with transparency. To earn back trust." The board studied him. For the first time he wasn't performing leadership, he was attempting it. Whether it was enough remained uncertain. Meanwhile, Sheila returned to her office feeling lighter. Not because the problem was solved, but because the burden was no longer on her shoulders. Her phone buzzed again. Another potential client seeking financial restructuring help. Her consulting firm had been open for less than a week, yet momentum was already building. She sipped her coffee and glanced out the window, thinking of the years she spent holding everything together for everyone else. Now her energy went to those who respected her expertise. Those who valued her clarity. Those who didn't silence her voice. She straightened her notebook, setting goals for the day. Behind her phone screen, her future expanded. Quiet, steady, controlled. Sheila had walked away from the ruins Eric created. Not out of revenge, but out of wisdom. And now, for the first time in her life, The foundation she stood on belonged entirely to her. Later that afternoon, the board requested a private follow-up meeting with Eric. Sheila didn't attend, her part was finished. Eric sat alone across from the directors while they reviewed the updated financial summaries. One member noted, "Your sister's documentation shows she personally supported the company for nearly a decade." Another added, "Your expenses were reckless. Leadership requires restraint." Eric swallowed hard. "I accept full responsibility." The room fell quiet. Finally, the chairman leaned forward. "We believe in giving second chances, but only to those who understand humility. You will remain CO, under strict oversight." Eric nodded, relief mixed with shame. "We expect transparency moving forward," the chairman continued. As the meeting ended, Eric stepped into the hallway and leaned against the wall, breathing shakily. For the first time in his life, he understood something painfully simple. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned, and Sheila had earned hers quietly, consistently, without applause. Meanwhile, Sheila received a message from the junior analyst she once defended. "Miss Hayes, I heard about everything. Thank you for always protecting us." Sheila smiled gently. The young woman had grown into a strong professional, something Sheila had always hoped for. As she replied, another notification came in. Mr. Hale had officially signed her consulting agreement. Her calendar filled with meetings, opportunities, and project timelines. Her new office buzzed with possibility, not pressure. She placed a small plant on her desk, her first personal item in years, and whispered, "Fresh start." She didn't realize Eric had parked across the street, watching her window. He wasn't stalking, he was processing. Processing how she had built something for herself in less than a week that radiated more meaning than his entire crumbling empire. He whispered to himself, she deserved more. Much more. For once, envy didn't twist inside him, admiration did. The next few days were unusually quiet. Staff at the old company settled into a cautious rhythm. Vendors remained wary but open to restructuring. Eric held daily meetings, this time without theatrics or false confidence. "We start with honesty," he told them. Some employees were still resentful, others skeptical, but a few nodded. They saw effort even if late. Brandon, however, spiraled. His pride couldn't accept the shift in power. "You're pathetic," he told Eric one morning. "You let your little sister outsmart you." Eric sighed. "She didn't outsmart me. She outworked me." Brandon scoffed. "Same thing." When the board later announced that Brandon's involvement had contributed to poor decisions, he stormed out, slamming doors behind him. Eric simply watched. He no longer felt rage, just clarity. Sheila's departure had revealed everyone's true value. Some had been assets. Some had been liabilities. And some, like Sheila, had been the very foundation. One evening, their parents invited Sheila over for dinner. She hesitated, remembering how often she'd been overlooked, dismissed, or praised only in comparison to Eric. So she went. When she arrived, her mother hugged her tightly, something she hadn't done in years. "We were wrong," her mother whispered. "We didn't see you." Her father joined them, eyes glassy. "Sheila, we placed too much weight on Eric and assumed you didn't need support because you were steady. That wasn't fair." Sheila felt something soften in her chest. "I don't need apologies," she said gently. "I just need respect." Her father nodded. "You have it. All of it." They sat for dinner. No hierarchy, no favoritism, just a family relearning how to be one. Sheila realized forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about choosing which parts deserved to follow her into the future. And tonight she chose peace. Days turned into weeks and Sheila's consultancy bloomed. Clients appreciated her clarity, her calmness, her discipline. She wasn't loud, flashy, or aggressive. She didn't need to be. Her results spoke for her. One afternoon, an investor who once dismissed her requested a meeting. "Miss Hayes," he said respectfully, "we misjudged your abilities." Sheila gave a polite smile. "Many did." He shifted awkwardly. "We'd like to hire you for a project, independently." Sheila leaned back. "I'll consider it. But understand this, I don't work in shadows anymore." He nodded immediately. When he left, Sheila closed her notebook and exhaled. She had rebuilt her entire life from silence, from strength, from truth. She didn't need revenge to feel whole. Her independence was enough. Her success was enough. Her boundaries were enough. And every new opportunity confirmed the truth. Sheila had not risen because of the collapse. She had risen because she finally stepped away. One crisp morning, Eric showed up at Sheila's office. Not to beg, not to panic, but simply to talk. He held 2 coffees, unsure if she still liked the same order. She opened the door, slightly surprised. "Eric, are you okay?" He offered the drink awkwardly. "I thought you might need this." She accepted it cautiously. They sat across from each other, the air still but not hostile. Eric cleared his throat. "The company is stabilizing. Fully. I'm rebuilding with transparency this time." Sheila nodded. "Good." He continued, "I also let Brandon go. He was toxic." Sheila replied softly, "That was overdue." Eric looked down at his coffee. "Sheila, thank you. Not for helping the company. For stepping away. It forced me to grow." She studied him, seeing the humility he had always lacked. "Growth is your responsibility," she said. "Not my burden." Eric nodded. "I know. And I'm finally carrying it." Eric hesitated before speaking again. "Mom and Dad want to have a family meeting next week. No business. Just family." Sheila raised an eyebrow. "That's new." He chuckled weakly. "Yeah. We're all trying to do better." Sheila thought for a moment. "Hey, I'll be there." Eric's shoulders relaxed. "Thank you." He stood to leave but paused at the door. "One more thing. I'm proud of you." Sheila froze. Eric had never said those words. Not once in her entire life. She studied his face, searching for sarcasm or guilt, but found neither. Only sincerity. "Thank you," she said quietly. After he left, Sheila sat alone in her office, absorbing the moment. For the first time, her brother wasn't treating her like a shadow or a safety net. He was meeting her as an equal. And somehow that felt like the final stitch closing an old wound. Weeks later, Sheila attended the family gathering. It was simple. Homemade food, warm laughter, real conversations. Her parents asked genuine questions about her new business. Her cousins asked for advice, not dismissively but with respect. Even Eric helped set the table, something he had never done. At one point, their father raised a glass. "To Sheila," he said proudly. "The backbone we didn't recognize soon enough." Sheila felt heat rise to her cheeks. "Dad," he shook his head. "No more minimizing yourself. You carried us for years. We see you now." The room filled with nods and soft smiles. Sheila took a deep breath. This wasn't validation. This was acknowledgement. And acknowledgement didn't erase the past, but it made the future feel lighter. She realized she wasn't the little sister anymore. She was a woman who had stepped into her own life and brought her family along, not through force but through truth. A month later, Eric sent her a message. "We closed a new deal today. Vendors trust us again. Thank you for helping me see what leadership really is." Sheila smiled. Growth was slow, painful, and imperfect, but he was doing the work. And she was no longer carrying it. As she walked into a client meeting that afternoon, she felt a calm confidence settle inside her. She greeted her new team, professionals who respected her expertise, not her connection to someone else. During the presentation, one client said, "Your reputation is remarkable, Ms. Hayes." Sheila replied, "It's built on boundaries." After the meeting, she stepped outside into the sunlight. Her phone buzzed again. Another inquiry, another opportunity. She felt steady, grounded, complete. She had lost nothing by walking away. She had gained everything by choosing herself. And the world had finally adjusted to the truth she always knew. She was never the background character. That evening, Sheila stood in her office doorway, looking at the space she had created from nothing but courage and clarity. The setting sun painted the room gold. Her laptop hummed softly. Her plant leaned toward the light. Everything felt calm. Everything felt earned. She picked up her notebook and wrote 3 words at the top of a fresh page. "My life begins." Not because she had taken revenge. Not because Eric had collapsed. Not because the family finally recognized her worth. But because she had chosen herself. Fully, unapologetically, and without hesitation. She whispered into the quiet room, "I am enough." Then she turned off the lights, locked her office, and walked into a future that belonged entirely to her. Eric rebuilt. The family healed. But Sheila thrived. Not as the forgotten sister, not as the silent helper, but as the woman who stepped out of the shadows and never looked back.